Thank you, Roger. And good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm going to light a candle here. My son John and I, when we were in Mexico last January, had a classmate named Hakima. She's from Kansas City, and she was there, and we just instantly became friends with her. Just a real great spirit. And as it turned out, she was driving through from Asheville, and we made a plan to see her, and she's staying with us now, and that's a candle for Hakima, and what a joy it is to connect with people in different situations, and to be there for her for the rest of her travels on her road trip. So, I'd like to talk about prayer this morning. You recall the last time I was here when we kind of discussed the Sermon on the Mount. It was very specific instructions on how to pray. It was in secret in your closet. And don't make a big spectacle about praying in public, like people that kneel in the center of the Capitol and pray, because it's more for show than anything else. And so this morning I'd like to explore this idea of prayer, but I want to first say I'm not even sure how it works. I will apologize to those of you who have heard me share some of these stories before. But those of you who know me know that my twins were born premature. They were in the neonatal unit at Vanderbilt, in a little acrylic box about this big. And the doctor said, "We've done all we can do. Go home and pray." And the thing about it was, there must have been another dozen other families that were receiving the same instructions, because these children are so small and so vulnerable and so, if you will, incomplete in their maturing process. My children weighed 3 pounds when they were born, and it was so hard to look in that box and see the tubes and needles and oh my gosh, it's like your little child is there and you can't really even touch them to soothe them or help them. And the doctor saying, "We have done everything we could do. Go home and pray." Which, for someone who's a bit of a non-prayer in the past, was a challenge. But we went home and prayed as hard as we could for the well-being of our children. Now, here's the thing. We would go back the next morning, and our children made it through the night. But there were empty acrylic boxes very close to us. So we knew that other families' children had not survived the night. And we know, I assume, that they were praying just as hard as we were. And that was one of those things that I say, well, how in the world does this work? I can't imagine that my prayers were more sincere or purer or more favored than the other families. How do we explain that? And it's a question I'm just going to leave floating in the air, because I'm not sure how all that works. Okay? Why is it one family whose mom is sick prays and she gets better, and one family whose mom is sick prays and she doesn't? It's hard for me to believe in a grand design and a grand plan and all of that, but here again, I don't understand how all that works. Now, when I was a child, we prayed this way: God is great, God is good, and we thank Him for this food. Did y'all ever do that one? Okay, pretty common, right? Didn't mean that much. You just said it before you ate. And then the one we said before we went to sleep. Well, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I'm with you all the way. And then you hear that, if I should die before I wake. Wait, what? That little clause in that prayer, I think, may contribute to the insomnia I still struggle with. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. And then, from the Sermon on the Mount, Our Father who art in heaven. All those things that were wrote and memorized, right? Forgive my sins, like I forgive other people. Lead me not into temptation, although it sounds kind of fun. There may be some benefit in this temptation thing, I'm not sure. But that's not the kind of prayer I want to explore this morning. The kind of prayer I want to explore this morning is something that really is a personal and meaningful type of prayer that I often kind of find my understanding of merges a bit with meditation, sitting still, quietly, listening, but also sharing what's on your heart. I think those are sincere attempts to connect with that whatever is larger than us. Okay? I have shared this story. In another lifetime, I had a comedy club in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So it's been almost 40 years now, which is astonishing to me. But I had the opportunity to work with a very, very clever man named Emo Phillips. Do you know? You know Emo's humor? Very gifted, but also in many ways highly unusual man. And Emo tells a story growing up Catholic in Chicago. And hearing the priest say, if you pray for it and ask for it, you will receive it, which is also from the Sermon on the Mount. Ask and you will receive. Knock and the door will open. And so he said, as a kid, I grew up in a neighborhood that was kind of poor, but all the kids had bicycles, but me. And I heard the priest say that, ask and you receive. So that night, after Mass that morning, I prayed for a bike. And then anticipated there would be one downstairs when I woke up. And I ran downstairs, no bike. So I tried it again the next night. Dear God, please, may I have a bike? All my friends have a bike. And I don't. Ran down the next morning, no bike. So he's getting a little bit irritated with the priest. And he went and talked to the priest and said, look, you said if I pray, I would get what I pray for. I'm praying for a bike twice, never got it, and I don't understand what you're saying or what's going on here. And the priest said, well, you kind of misunderstood what I was saying. We're not supposed to pray for bikes. That's not why you pray. You pray for other things. And then Emo said, I got it. So I went home and I stole a bike. And then I prayed for forgiveness. Right? I don't think that's how we're supposed to do it either. That's it. So exactly what is prayer? I'm curious, by show of hands, how many people have a regular prayer practice? And it's okay if no hands at all go up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. I want to share 3 prayers with you that Annie Lamott recommends. In fact, she wrote a book called Help, Thanks, Wow. Okay? And I want to explore each of those 3, and I want to conclude with an overall thought on what prayer can do for us. And first and foremost, I'm inclined to say that growing up, I did red bike prayers too. And I think many of us do that, not with just a red bike, but with a job, with a partner, with a house. Dear God, please help me get the mortgage, get the loan I need to buy this house. I don't know if that's helpful or not. Those red bike prayers often can be disappointing, because if they are answered, they might be answered way many years after we pray those prayers. Again, I don't know about this. But I do know about these. And ultimately, I don't think when we pray, we're praying for things to manifest in the world right now in front of us, as much as we're praying, and in that process, we are changed. In the process of prayer, we are changed. Someone mentioned prayers and thoughts for those suffering from addiction, right? That idea of praying to be relieved of that obsession is something that in its own way changes us, right? It's a way to ask to be a better person and make a difference in the world. Annie Lamott talked about it in terms of, you know what? Let's just strip it down to the basics. And let's be real about this. Here's an amazing prayer. One word, help. And it's really, for many of us, it's often, help, which is how it feels. Because I've reached my limits of what I know to do. I need something bigger than me to manifest somehow in my life in a way that changes me. Help says to me that there's an admission that I can't figure this out all on my own. And when I pray help, it gets rid of that egocentric way of marching through the world. I can figure it out. I can get this done if I just try harder, if I just exert more pressure, if I control just a little bit more, I will get this done. And when I'm saying help, it's an admission that I can't do all of this. And when I accept that, I am changed. But also, I think the help prayer can be effective when I just say, please help so-and-so heal. Please help this person make good decisions. Please help. Again, that changes me more than anything else, because what I'm doing is externally trying to focus good on others. Not our normal human condition, I don't think. I think we tend to be kind of egocentric and fearful. But when I say help so-and-so, it means I'm trying to manifest something for somebody else. Help. The other one is thanks. Which to me is about gratitude. Thank you for this opportunity to be in community today. Thank you for this opportunity to be of service. Thank you for the gifts I've received. Thank you for the things that I can do that I feel fairly accomplished at. Thank you for the gifts that I have to share with other people. Thank you for the fact that I have food on the table. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That begins to change me as well, because I begin to think in terms of gratitude. Another thing that it's real easy to forget about when I'm all busy and wrapped up and trying to make things turn out the way I think they should. Being grateful about my life is a way to be centered, in a sense that I am forever thankful about my life, even when it's hard. Thankful for the friends who are trying to support me. Thankful for the parents who are there for me. Thankful for the opportunity to be of service. So, help, thanks, it's a great prayer. And then this one. And I think in this day and age, it's something even more important than ever. Wow. Being born and then, growing into consciousness is a bit like walking into a movie about a third of the way through. Okay? You really don't know what happened before you got here. I mean, somebody might be explaining it to you, but I was unaware of it before this. And given the fact that we might live to be 85, maybe 90 if we're lucky, I'm not going to know how this movie ends. I'm just here in the middle of it. This was all just waiting for me when I showed up. Now, things have changed a little bit. I know it might be a shocker to some of you to think that there was a time when you picked up a phone on the wall and went, and I can remember when I had a young cousin who sat me down and said, watch this, look at this. And I was looking at something like I was looking at fire, and this thing said, you've got mail. Wow. Wow. But not just technology. The fact that we're all so different and that we can be artistic and express ourselves. And we can be so just amazing in the way we interact with each other and the things that we bring to the table. But also, wow, when it comes to, there's a thing like the Grand Canyon. I can go canoeing on the Red River. I can go whitewater rafting. You name the things that amaze you. Life in and of itself is pretty extraordinary. To think that we're just one planet in this solar system, in this little bitty part of the galaxy, with all the millions, billions of galaxies there are out there, and that it's constantly expanding, and we're sitting in here this morning talking like this, and we're turning a microphone on so it shows up on a computer. Wow. And we tend to forget that because I think we drift towards self-importance. I think that's part of our human nature. But that prayer of wow, and just, it kind of in some ways merges with the gratitude prayer. But this idea, wow, I'm alive. I can walk around. In fact, I can walk around until my hips start hurting so bad, the doctor goes, we need to replace that. And then he does it, and I can keep walking around. Wow. Wow. Here we are. I said wow yesterday in Nashville when I brought Kim down and dropped her off at that rally. I don't know how many thousands of people were there, but it was a ton of people. You could hear it for blocks and blocks and blocks. It's just amazing that we can say, you know what, this isn't right. Let's do something. And then we do it. Wow. Help, thanks, and wow. Now I want to share one other prayer that to me is almost more like a philosophy of living. And that's that serenity prayer that most of us have heard of. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. Give me the courage to work on changing the things I can. And please, may I have some wisdom about this so I know where I can and can't. Because that where I can and can't is sometimes where most of my suffering comes from. I'm trying to get something done when I don't have the power to do it, right? So the serenity prayer applies to us all day long. It applies to us as we're driving around. It applies to us as we wake up in the morning and think about our day ahead. It applies to us when we think back and go, this is absolutely crazy what's going on in the country right now. Now, I don't know anybody in here that's going to be running for U.S. Senator. Probably no one. But we can make our difference in the way we do it, right? What do I have the power? Do I have the wisdom to know? I mean, does it do any good for me to be constantly being negative about everything? Or do I just take a philosophical approach to this and know where I stop and where the world goes on and I can't control it, but this part that I can? Good way to start the day, that serenity prayer. Good way to remind yourself that you're never going to perfect your work environment. Another thing, good thing to remember, that you can't make every relationship you've ever been in perfect, because other people are beyond my control. Grant me the wisdom to know the difference. Grant me the serenity, but then please help me develop the wisdom to know the difference. And finally, I want to end on this note. When exploring this idea of prayer, I heard a minister one time say this. He said, you know, we all want to be prayerful. We want to live a certain way. We want to be in the world a certain way. He said, I think it helps if you consider this. A life of prayer. And Roger actually alluded to it in one of his writings this morning. A life of prayer is when you never stop asking, what is going on in the unfolding creation around me? And how can I make a positive difference? What is going on in the unfolding creation around me? Reminds me that this is an unfolding, constantly recreating itself reality that we're in. It's unfolding as we speak. How do I intend to be part of it? And that's the challenge. How do I intend to be part of this unfolding creation? And my prayerful life will be reflected in the choices that I make when I interact with other people, the way I live my life honorably, the way I try to make a difference. A life of prayer is when I never stop asking, what's going on in the unfolding creation, and how can I make a difference?